Awesome. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to meet with you. Wanted just to name that I'm currently on Muskogee Creek Nation land here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and yeah, I'm just really excited to get started and to talk about some of the stuff that I'm working on and to hear more about you. So yeah, maybe we can get started if you want to just say a little bit about yourself, whatever feels right for this moment. I can just share. So I just started in my first semester at UC Berkeley in the MFA Art Practice program. I'm a pretty like interdisciplinary artist. I work with a lot of medium, as you probably maybe have seen. I am currently working on a project that I would love your help on, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But it kind of draws upon some of my past work, working with indigenous epistemologies as well as intergenerational communication and working with some healing practices and energy-based practices. Yeah, so I'm, a licensed psychotherapist in California. I'm not practicing right now because I'm here in the Tulsa Artist Fellowship still, but I do plan on practicing again once I return back to California. And I'm moving back in December. So I'm hoping to be in the Bay Area. I still don't have housing, but I'm planning that and, hoping to find something in the next few months. Yeah, really excited to get back to California. I'm originally from Southern California. My family immigrated when they were pretty young. My parents are both from Mexico, from Jalisco and Zacatecas. And they both came to the US when they were like in their teens. And so I was born in East LA, and I grew up for most of my life in the Inland Empire. And yeah, and I went to UC Riverside for my undergrad, and I studied art and psychology. So I definitely feel like I've allowed myself to explore a lot of different paths. And for a long time, I felt like I had to decide if I was going to be a therapist, if I was going to be an artist. And I've kind of let all that go at this point in my life and just kind of like, I'm just going to do whatever I want and see who has money for me, I guess, or see what shows up in my life, and that's just been so healing to just kind of allow my life to unfold instead of being kind of constrained by these capitalist ideas of what you're supposed to be. Um, so yeah, and I use they them pronouns, but I also am pretty fluid and contextual with my pronouns. So whatever feels right in the moment, as long as it's done with respect. Yeah, so I'd love to hear about you, whatever you want to share. Um, if you want to start, Brendan.
Yeah, of course. So I use he, they pronouns. I think we're all studying world arts and cultures, but I'm a transfer senior, so going to be spending my last year here. Oh, kitty. Sorry.
I know.
I'm going to be spending my last year here at UCLA, probably all online, which I'm a little sad about, but we'll see what the future holds. I'm really interested in my program's arts activism stream, and so I want to study an MFA program that lines up pretty closely with that at Prescott College after I finish here at UCLA. It's the Social Environmental Arts Practice MFA that just started with Patrice Cullors.
Oh my goodness, that's exciting.
Yeah, I've met with the admission counselor and it went really well. So definitely gonna try to apply this fall. Let's see, besides that, I was working with a community gallery in Chinatown called New 2. That project just ended recently, unfortunately, kind of unrelated to COVID, which was really sad. But now I'm really trying to start something of my own, and I want it to be kind of a worker cooperative of sorts, however that may work in a context that's kind of outside of production. Let's see, besides that, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I think I mentioned in my bio that I'm really interested in film photography, like DIY culture, mostly zines is what I like to do. And then also like video editing I've been taking up in the last year or so. Yeah, those are some of the main things.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for sharing all that. Just excited to see also what kinds of things you all feel gravitated towards working on, especially hearing kind of some of your interests and things that you're working on now. Diana, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna. My pronouns are she, they. I am also a fourth year World Arts and Culture student. I'm really interested in a lot of things, mainly, identity politics, immigration, survivorship, women of color, and decolonization is something that's really big in my life right now, and alternative like healing methods. Last quarter in spring, I did a research project on how queer women of color use art to overcome trauma. Um, and it was like a visual and literary analysis in comparison to autoethnographic data. Um, so that was really interesting and healing for me. Um, I've just kind of been on this healing journey this whole year. And then right now, I'm part of the undergraduate research scholars program. And so I'm still kind of deciding on what my research project will be, because it's also going to be my senior project. But so far, something that's really caught my attention is remembering through art, and also with like immigrant women of color. And so I'm interested in exploring how we can use art to remember, like restructure ourselves, our identities, like piece together things of the past, present, future, and how that like can also be a form of like self-expression, of like talking about things that can't really be talked about with words. So that's kind of like what I've been thinking a lot about. Also, I guess kind of a self-disclosure. My great grandma passed away earlier this year. She was the last person that had like the most indigenous heritage in my life. And so that kind of propelled me to really like search. And she's also been appearing in my dreams a lot. And so I've been trying to like honor her memory and like again remember her, and like really think about like indigenous women in Peru, in the US, and like the autonomy that sometimes gets lost within this like patriarchal capitalist like framework, and see how I can dismantle that within myself, and my own identity, and then how later on I can do that within my communities. So that's like what I've been really like focused on, really thinking about lately.
Thank you, Deanna. I really appreciate you sharing all that. And yeah, I feel like there's so many connections to just my own journey as well, especially around indigeneity and around also exploring some of these ways that, as you're naming, these systems have affected and continue to affect us both on the outside and on the inside as well, right? And yeah, really appreciate you sharing all that. Jordan, do you want to go next?
Okay. Yeah, fourth year, World Arts and Cultures and Philosophy double major. I would say that the big thing that I've been really looking at in like the past 2 years in terms of like my academic interests and that kind of stuff is, so I'm mixed. I'm half white. My dad's like super white. He's from like Missouri. Many generations, they've been here since the Irish potato famine. Like that's when the first of the Goheens like came over. And then my mom is a first generation immigrant from Taiwan. So all of her family, except for one great aunt, is in Taiwan still. So growing up, I split a lot of time between, like a lot of my vacation time between like Missouri and Taiwan, a lot of times back to back. But as I've entered into college, particularly in the World Arts and Cultures department, and really looked at kind of like self-reflexively looking at colonialism in different contexts, I'm kind of realizing that, you know, I'm mixed in, and in the States, that's like a really specific thing. And I'm categorized usually as Asian or Asian American, you know, but I'm still a part of these like hegemonic, destructive colonial systems wherever I'm going, because in Taiwan, the indigenous folk are oppressed by a completely different group of people, which are currently the Han Chinese. So I've been doing field work for the last 2 summers under a professor in Taiwan who is from the indigenous community, looking at geography and soil conservation and land rights, really like practical stuff. And kind of like as I'm moving forward, I'm trying to go into graduate school for probably anthropology. And I'm looking specifically at like, similar to you, Deanna, like identity politics is something that I'm pretty interested in, especially like the formation of this pan-indigenous identity that is kind of like happening in Taiwan, and like what that's all about. And then also the religious, the spread of like Christianity in these indigenous population, because it's really weird, or not necessarily weird, but it's unusual and unexpected, because close to 80% of the indigenous population there is Christian, but under 1% of Taiwan's total population is Christian. So it's kind of like, how did that happen? Or what does it even mean to be Christian in this context? Religious syncretism. And I'm also recently, like during quarantine, I've kind of been getting into or looking at like Carl Jung, so psychotherapy. I have a kind of an amateur interest in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. Yeah, and thank you for naming how, like, as you're saying, these processes of colonization have happened all over the world, are still happening right to this day. And yeah, I just, I want to share, just, I think, because y'all have kind of spoken about it, one of my own reasons, personal reasons for working with Indigenous epistemologies is because I also, I was raised kind of knowing that I was Mexican, right? And for most of my life, I've received a lot of messages, like spiritual messages or psychic messages or messages from my ancestors, and I didn't know who they were, where they were coming from. And for me, it was really confusing. And being a psychotherapist, I've worked with a lot of folks who also, at certain times in their lives receive messages, feel like they're going crazy, are having these moments of like a psychic break that happens because of, the information we're told growing up in this world, and then the dissonance that actually exists because there's so much else going on. And so for myself, it wasn't until my 30s that I found out that I was Indigenous. So I knew I was, but I didn't know from where. And my parents hid it from us. They didn't want to talk about it. So, and it wasn't until like a long conversation with my father that actually resulted from one of these psychic visions that I received. And my father finally was like, "Oh, your grandfather used to talk to crystals." And so my message came from a crystal that I found on a hike. And so that kind of just opened up this whole other world, and realizing that, my ancestors are the Birarica or the Huichol from Mexico, and that there's a long lineage of doing divination work, of working with crystals, working with ancestor messages, honoring ancestors. And so it puts so much of my life into context, because I feel like from an early age, my ancestors have been pushing me to be a maracame, or to be a medicine person and to heal. But that's been really confusing, living in capitalism, living within white supremacy and this colonial state. And so now, having art as a place to kind of really explore that, I've been really working to try to unearth some of that, try to also integrate it with my background as a queer and trans person, try to integrate it with my work and connection to a lot of feminist kind of spaces, underground DIY spaces. I also have like a long history of working within DIY spaces, of creating underground spaces for queer and trans people, for people of color to come and like connect in. And so I think all of that being said, I think that that's definitely been something that I've been guided to. And so I honor my ancestors a lot in the work that I do, because I definitely know that they've been moving me in the direction that I'm in, and I'm really honored to be doing this work. Yeah, so with that said, I wanted to ask you all, maybe if you wanted to share a little bit about, you know, I've received what Professor Shorter sent about like the process, but I would just love to hear from you all about what you kind of see this process looking like. And I guess I'm also wondering like how much I create that structure, how much you create that structure. Yeah, and I have like a bunch of stuff that I wrote down that we'll get into in a little bit of just things that I'm hoping that we can work on together. But I'd love to hear from you what you see this process looking like, and also, yeah, any information that might be helpful for me.
So one thing is, I don't know if Professor Shorter shared this with you, but we have to come up with a strategy plan by next week. Originally it was Tuesday, now it's Thursday. And so that he kept it pretty loose, but what it looks like kind of is having like dates where certain things are going to be done, potentially like interviewing you for our final paper, and finding time for that, like specifically setting out when that'll be in our strategy papers. So that's one thing that I think all of us are kind of have in the back of our head for this meeting. But are you interested in hearing like from like your introduction what we're like drawn to, or in a minute?
Yeah, I think maybe what we could do, and definitely if anyone else has any other things they want to add to what Brendan just said, I can go over some of the stuff that I'd love for us to work on, and then maybe we could have that conversation of like what people want to work on and get a little bit more clear about like timelines, and we can start kind of working on that kind of stuff. But I was just meaning in an overview. And so I think, as I mentioned in my email, my Saturdays are the days that I usually have like a studio practice, and so those are the days that work best for me. And yeah, I think maybe one of the ways that we can continue to check in is like have group meetings, try to keep them like at an hour if we can, and then at some point, definitely we can work individually and start kind of working together on some of these interview questions. And also, because I think part of the work that I have is kind of, to support my practice and support me, but then I have some other stuff that will also support me, but I feel like will be more creative and hopefully can help you to explore something that you're interested in as well. And that's something that I also would love if you all feel okay with it, to meet individually to kind of talk about your individual project that you're working on. Yeah, but is there anything else that you want to share about like the overall structure, or that any information that might help me just in kind of knowing what I need to keep in mind? No? Okay. Okay, so I guess what we could do is I could start sharing a little bit about some of the stuff that I want to work on. And I have a document here that I'm going to share with you all. Let me just open it up. Give me a second here. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the chat. So if you want to open it up, and we can look at it together. Okay. So, the first part of this is I have kind of like the goals of like task-oriented things that I would like help on. And again, I'm also really open to hearing from you all if you have other ideas of how I can organize stuff. That's like kind of a part of my, I guess, help that I need is thinking about how to organize things. So one thing that, I would really like help on is a Wikipedia page. And so I kind of wrote down some of the different things that are involved in a Wikipedia, writing a Wikipedia page about someone. And then I have like a website, and in my website, I've kind of been thinking about like revamping it or redoing it. And I'm working with a mentor at UC Berkeley, who her name is Stephanie Sahuko. She's this amazing artist who kind of started talking to me about writing artist statements. And you know, sometimes being an artist, it could be really hard for you to write about your work. So that was something maybe to think about, is if someone would be interested in writing about one piece of mine, like a couple of paragraphs, or helping me with my bio. So there's like a few things on the website, I feel. And then, you know, part of that also is I have like an energy-based practice called Our Sacred Web, where I work with people in all sorts of things. The main thing I do is work with people in tarot sessions and guidance sessions. But I also maybe would like some time to think about the structure and about like how I work. And that's something maybe I could get some support on as well. But I think the bigger project, you know, these are kind of just like kind of small tasks that I'm hoping to receive some support on. But the bigger project that I'm working on is um, for this spring, I'm having a show as part of my first year MFA show at Berkeley. And I'm hoping to create like a big website as well as an installation that's connected to this website. And I'm hoping for it to kind of track some of the work that we do and also incorporate some of the work that you all create as well. And so, you know, for part of this, I'm thinking one way that I like to work is I love to do divination work and kind of incorporate divination or altered state of consciousness work into my art practice. And so I was thinking of potentially like organizing some sort of workshop, some sort of event that would show you a little bit of like how I work and to have an experience and maybe invite other people into that space. And then see if that could inspire you for your project. So it's a way of kind of sharing something that I work with people in general, and then also, yeah, seeing kind of what that produces for you. And so that's one thing that I had as an idea, is to kind of work on a ceremony and maybe talk with you all about what that would look like, or a workshop, see what that would look like. And, you know, so in terms of what I'm hoping to create is I'm hoping that I can offer something that you all can kind of learn with me together. And one thing I was thinking was a song, because I've been working a lot with like ceremonial songs and songs that my people use, and also songs that I create myself as well. So I was thinking maybe of like, we could all work together on one song that we could do as a group. And then, you know, for your kind of individual project, or also I'm open to it being collaborative, I'd love for you all to produce some sort of video or some sort of documentation of either a workshop, or it could be an individually made video that shares a practice or shares a message. Like, I'm very open. I think really what would be I think the best is for this to be something that's really meaningful for you and that really helps you like work through something. Because, you know, like Diana, like you were saying, I also see art as like a sanctuary, or as like a place to process and to like work stuff through. So I really would want it to be that. And I think a big part of my overall goal for this installation that I'm doing at Berkeley is to expand upon some work that I started. There's two projects that I think about. One of them is called Perpetual Flowering. And so for that video installation, it was like my first solo show at Vincent Price Art Museum. I created this space where the students at ELAC, or East LA College, could come and kind of communicate with these older queer and trans people that were sharing messages. And I also included some flower essences as well, that I worked with an herbalist to kind of pick some essences that are really meant to help with kind of unfolding some colonial like energy and really opening people up. And so I'm really interested in kind of using art as a place to help people unfold, to help people transform. And then also, I think one thing I've been inspired by recently, there's an artist, I'll write down her name if you all are interested in, if you don't know who she is. Her name is Carolina Caicedo. And she does a lot of work with like water rights and works a lot in Latin America. And so I recently kind of read a paper by her, and it reminded me of a project that I worked on in 2017 called Give Us Home Spider. And so for this project, what I did was I created ceremonies that are kind of loosely based on ceremonies that the Vidarika do. And the Vidaritari people, they do not kind of separate art and resistance work and ceremony. And so that's something that I've been really inspired, is like kind of bringing together like art practice, but also spirituality as a form of resistance. And so I was doing a lot of ceremony at different sites of environmental destruction and environmental racism in Southern California. All these sites were connected to the port of Los Angeles, and how the port brings in goods from all over the world, and then they get moved through all these communities, and a lot of these communities are being affected by these systems. And so for myself, like one thing that personally came up in doing this work in 2017 was, as I was researching about other people's histories and the ways that these systems have affected other people, I started doing a little bit of research on my own hometown, which is called Bloomington, California. It's near Fontana, if anyone knows where that is, in the Inland Empire. And so I found out that I grew up near a quarry, a mining quarry that mined cement. And that around 2008, they released a lot of hexavalent chromium, which is this really toxic chemical that damages your respiratory system and also creates autoimmune disorders in people. And so I'm someone who had autoimmune issues, has had them, and has had respiratory issues my whole life. And, so finding this out, I, was kind of shocked to kind of be thinking of this as like almost like an outsider, and then it very much became about me. And so in the research, I found out that Erin Brockovich actually came and did a class action lawsuit, but all the work that she did was all in English. And so my entire community of Spanish speaking people, we like never knew about this happening. And so it wasn't until 2017 that I found out. So years later, I found out that this had happened. And so, sadly, this is not an isolated incident. There is so much of this happening all over the place. And so I'm also interested in weaving in some information that's like kind of resistance work, or kind of naming ways that these systems of industrialization are affecting communities, and many times trying to obfuscate. And so I've been kind of interested in kind of weaving some of that into this project as well. And I've heard a couple of you mention like resistance and work. So that's also something for you if you want to think about that. Spiritual practices, personal care practices are also resistance. Working with art as sanctuary is also resistance. So it doesn't have to involve this kind of stuff, but it's just something I'm naming as like something I'm interested in just weaving more into my own personal practice, and also continuing to kind of investigate and look at and research in the work that I do. So that was a lot. So I'd love to just hear from you, what your thoughts are, and also if you feel gravitated to any of these things. And I'd love a little bit of support of how we can start breaking this stuff up and thinking about how we're going to work on this.
So your number one priority is kind of the arts, the UC Berkeley arts installation / website, if I'm hearing it correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I would say like the biggest thing I'm hoping to work on this semester, because it is part of the, a show that is opening in January.
Okay.
And so the reason I want to make it a website is I'm taking a class right now that's called electrocrafting, and it's about like learning how to code and make art with coding, and how to integrate different technologies too. And so I'm hoping to create a website that will kind of document what we've gone through, and maybe include some videos, include information. I still don't know what it's going to look like. And I think that's also something I'm interested in, just like kind of collaborating to and hearing maybe ideas about how this could show up. And I'm also hoping, so I'm going to make a website, but I'm also hoping to maybe make some videos and maybe make some physical installations, because we are going to be installing work into a gallery. But I don't know if people will be allowed to see it physically, but I think we will have like virtual showings. Yeah. Yeah. Nia.
Hi, yeah. I find myself gravitating a lot towards this installation work. I myself like to do installations, as Jordan and Brendan know. And also our Sacred Web like site, because I'm just like really interested in healing and all those sort of things. My personal like goals or wishes, I guess, is to develop my decolonizing plus reclamation healing journey and my remembering through art art project. So I feel like there's a lot of overlap between those two things, and then our Sacred Web, and then your virtual installation. So yeah, that's where my thoughts are.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Diana. Yeah. Yeah, and I would really hope, I would love it if all three of you could work on something for the installation, definitely. But yeah, I definitely feel, I would love, Diana, to work with you on our Sacred Web, and if someone else wants to also work with me on it as well. Yeah, does anyone, I know Brendan, you kind of mentioned in your email being a little interested in Wikipedia. Do you have like some knowledge of working with Wikipedia or with websites?
I don't necessarily have Wikipedia experience, but I have experience with like website builders. So I'm not sure, because you said like I don't have experience with coding, but I do have experience with like Squarespace and WordPress and Cargo Collective. Like I've used all of those website builders before. But if it's gonna be something like building from scratch, I don't have experience with that. So yeah, I could send like my portfolio website, which I kind of built from scratch with a website builder, if you're interested in that. And then beyond those things, I'm also interested in our Sacred Web. I'm really drawn to the song. At first I was just kind of like, oh, like I don't know about music, but I've always wanted to. So like my little brother is like a rapper, producer, whatever, and my older brother is like he scores films. So I've always been kind of left in the middle, like I don't know how to do that stuff, but I love going to like concerts and music festivals, and that was like kind of my thing in my teenage years. So definitely interested in that. And then also as I mentioned before, I am enjoying video editing and learning how to do more with that. So it sounds like you want us all to do a video, but if you want like more video work, that's something that I can definitely provide.
Yeah, and I could definitely use help with that. I think, you know, I would love for you all to make a video, but then I also plan on potentially working with some videos that I already have, and also even finding a way to maybe share some of the conversations that we have through video editing. And I think one of the challenges I have for myself is I'm trying not to make this look like an informative website. Like I'm trying to kind of have it be more like a exploration or a journey. And I'm really bad at coding, so I'm kind of like learning how to do it right now. So that's like my own project, is like kind of learning how to code a website. Because yeah, I do use Squarespace, and like I definitely use that for my own website. Yeah, but the website I'm hoping to make for this installation, I want it to look a lot more kind of like my aesthetic. I want it to be very psychedelic. I want it to be very like playful. But I, at this moment, don't know at all how to do that with code. I'm kind of learning little bits. But that's, yeah, so but I would definitely love some help with like video editing, especially if I start compiling some videos and want to kind of figure out a way to show them. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I guess like I definitely I would love help with a Wikipedia article. That's like definitely one thing that I really would love to get out of this as well. So if anyone has some experience working with it, I had someone who was like my assistant a while back try to do it, but they kind of mentioned that there's like different steps you have to take to be able to submit a Wikipedia article. So I don't know if someone would be interested in kind of taking that on to work on that, or kind of figuring out how to do that.
I would be willing to do that.
Okay.
Interested and willing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess so. Like looking back at the list, let me go back to it. so yeah, maybe I guess, so if you, Jordan, want to help me with the Wikipedia, and maybe Brendan, you can help me with the website and with our Sacred Web. And Diana, if you want to help me with our Sacred Web. And then in terms of the videos, yeah, I definitely hear from you, Brendan, that you would like to work with maybe sounds, song. Diana, I definitely hear from you that you're wanting to also make like a video that it helps you kind of, as you're saying, remember or work with, yeah, like decolonization within art practice. And Jordan, do you have a sense of like maybe what you would want to work on? And you don't have to know exactly what you want to work on, but just an idea of like a personal video or something that you want to work on. And it also doesn't have to be a video. It could also be some in another form of medium too. Just wanting, especially Diana, you mentioned installation. Like I'm also open to finding ways to create objects, or so it doesn't have to necessarily be a video.
I mean, I'm definitely open to video. I think the creative medium that I'm most comfortable in is probably poetry. I don't know if you have any space for that, but I wouldn't want to like create extra work. I would say like poetry is like my go-to, but I've also done some work in video and video editing as well. So I could get involved with the videos
Yeah,
yeah.
and I feel like there could
Yeah.
be ways to combine those mediums, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
poetry, and I feel like words are really powerful. And that's something I haven't mentioned either, is that part of my journey in making this website and for this project is I'm slowly learning Bidari, which is the language of my people, and also using that as a way to kind of force myself to learn, because I'm learning this as I program also, because I'm trying to integrate different languages into this website that I'm going to build. So language and words are definitely really important in my work in general, but also I feel like in this project too. So yeah, I would love for you to find a way to integrate your passions and maybe try out something a little bit newer that you haven't done before. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I guess, are there any questions or any thoughts about this? And I guess I'm wondering, like, how would it be best for us to work? I guess, yeah, what would help you the most in terms of us working? Yeah, if you have a sense. Like, should we plan on meeting on once a week and then checking in and kind of see where you are? Because you're going to be working for 2 hours a week, right? Is that what? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, and do we have until December? Is that like when the semester's over? Okay. Yeah, so I guess we could meet once a week and kind of check in to see where folks are. And then I guess if on your own end, if you wanted to work on like a timeline for yourself and maybe bring that to the next time that we meet, so that way we can kind of have that to hold ourselves accountable. And just so that gives us some structure in terms of like what we're working on. And then I guess on my end, one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on like a workshop offering. And I can tell you a little bit about some workshops that I've done, and just to maybe get some feedback from you all on what might interest you. So a big workshop that I've done a lot is called Intro to Divination Practices for Creatives. And so this is I look at divination as like a cross cultural phenomenon, and how many communities have used divination in their work. And so if you don't know what divination is, tarot practice is a form of divination. It's like trying to look beyond the veil, trying to look into the future, to the past. And so I myself work a lot with hydromancy or geomancy, which is working with crystals, working with rocks, or working with water. And so usually as part of my workshop, I have an experience of working with hydromancy with water, and kind of receiving messages from it. And I've done this workshop in all sorts of spaces. One of my favorite places I did it for a graphic design class, and students ended up making like designs that were inspired by things that they witnessed or felt during the experience. And so That's one thing I was thinking about, is maybe offering a workshop like that or loosely kind of based on that. But I'm also open because I've done all sorts of other stuff too. But I feel like this is a medium or a practice that can really help unfold some stuff or help you receive messages also that could really be helpful in creating an art project. And so that was like one of my reasons for wanting to do that, is yeah, working on that. But I'll give you also other examples of other stuff that I've done. So I've also done workshops on creating potions, creating spells, working with flowers, flower essences and herbs. I've also done workshops on this thing I call spontaneous or tactical divination, which is kind of incorporating altered states into your daily life, and kind of using it as a tactical medium to help you receive information when you need it sometimes, because sometimes you might want to know something, and so you can kind of just start to integrate it into your life. And so that's something kind of outside of like doing a ceremony and getting intentional, just seeing how divination can actually be something that's with you all the time too. I'm just trying to think of, I've also done, I have this at the end of this month, I'm going to be a part of this event called the Witches Confluence, and it happens in the Bay Area. And I'm offering a workshop on obsidian, working with obsidian. And that's something that I've also worked a lot with. And it's definitely a stone that has a long history of being used in divination practices. And I've used it a lot for ancestral work to really communicate with ancestors too. Yeah, so I guess with all that said, I wanna hopefully make an offering maybe in November, I'm thinking, and have it be, or maybe earlier, so that way you can have some time to process and have that integrated into your work. So maybe by the end of this month, I'll start working on something, maybe send a few dates out to you all, see what would work for you, and then maybe invite a few other people in to do the work with us, and then have that be something that inspires the work that you do. That's my hope, is that it will inspire something in you, in your projects. Any thoughts about that? Any ideas, suggestions?
I really liked the thing that you said about potions and herbs, because I feel like that's how I mostly connect with my ancestors, and like by the indigenous knowledge that, like this little indigenous knowledge that was like passed on through amidst all the violence, was herbs. So I really resonate with that. I was actually thinking earlier this year about doing kind of like an altar piece for herbs. And I just kind of remembered that as you were saying it. And then also the tactile divination of like in your daily life, just like tapping into that. That also sounded really cool.
Awesome, thank you for that, Deanna. Any other thoughts from Brendan or Jordan?
The mute unmute there, Brendan. For me, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I'm kind of like I'm like different from Deanna in this sense, where I don't have any experience like with divination, potions, any of this stuff. So I'm kind of stepping into a whole new world in terms of that, and I'm very open to like studying it and learning about it, but I don't really know where to begin. So I'm open to learning about all of it. If you have like a beginner's workshop or something, maybe I should attend that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that.
I had a question. I'm pretty much on the same page as Jordan. I don't know a whole lot either, but my question was, are we able to open it up? Like, are you opening it up to people you know, or can we open it up to people we think that would benefit from something like this?
I'm open. Like, I'm actually hoping to offer this workshop to the community. So I would love it if you all wanted to invite people in. A lot of the workshops I've done also, just so you know, are like donation based, no one turned away. So that, just so you know, that won't be like a issue for me if you have folks that might not be able to afford it or anything. Yeah, so I guess just hearing the three of you, I think I'm gonna think about this for a moment, but I guess maybe I could kind of work on something that has like an intro just to kind of orient people to what I'm talking about, right? And then maybe something that incorporates plants and that incorporates tactical magic. So maybe I think what I might do is like think of like a new offering that kind of maybe weaves together a few things. That for me is also, I feel like, part of something I enjoy as an art practice is thinking of ways to kind of create offerings for the community. Yeah, and then I guess, yeah, that'll be I'm hoping to have something for you all next Saturday by the time that we meet. And then maybe what I'll do is like have it ready and then have some dates, and then we can agree on some dates. And then we'll like, and then I'll launch it and we can invite people to join us. And maybe even it'll be like for the following week or something. So that way it'll be early on in our process and can help kind of, yeah, and something I think could be helpful is to have like some sort of journal or some sort of way to keep track of your process so you can kind of see how this unfolds over time. I think that could just be helpful in general for you, just to kind of track how your ideas emerge or unfold in a way. Yeah, any questions, any thoughts about that?
When you, or maybe it's not when you mention anything, maybe I just thought of this, but when you're talking about just as offering, I was thinking if it's going to be on Zoom and we record it, we could make that into like, I don't know, some kind of repurposable content for your website or something, and I could edit it if it needs to be edited, or it can just be recorded and as is.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's something I'll let people know when they're signing up, that I'm going to be recording it. And that's definitely something I've done before in the past. And yeah, I was hoping to kind of integrate that into this piece because it is about like how we share knowledge, especially knowledge that maybe isn't accessible or available within institutions. And I guess with that said, also a line that I like to skirt, and I think that maybe is interesting for people to think about being in academia is, you know, I like to kind of give some of this information and knowledge to academia, but I also like to find ways to obfuscate it and to not fully share information, especially sacred knowledge. So I do like sharing knowledge, and I think that's also part for myself of why I like to create, for just to give you an example, for that show Perpetual Flowering, it was in a museum setting. And for one of the pieces that I made a song that is a ceremonial song of my people, but I recreated it into like a techno song, and I also changed the lyrics. And so it was inspired from that, but I didn't want to share that ceremonial song within that space. And in similar ways, I think about that also when I'm offering something for a university, is where I do want to share something, I want to bring something that is an offering, but I also want to find ways to honor my people and honor the lineages, and kind of to, I guess, in some ways, use creativity to do that too. So that's something that I think about. That's not something that you necessarily have to think about. That's also why I like to kind of use imagery and find ways to kind of play with stuff to not make it so direct. You know, does that make sense, what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, any final thoughts, I guess, before, do you all feel like you have what you need, I guess, to work on like a timeline or the thing that Professor Shorter wants from you? Or are there any other questions?
Maybe it would be helpful if you can put dates of like by when you would like certain things to be done. Because I know that Professor Shorter was really like adamant on having a timeline and like, you know, by this date we'll have this done and so on and so forth. So I think that would help in like for us to organize ourselves.
Okay, wonderful. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll go through this same document that we have open, and I'll add some dates to it. And also feel free to change the dates if it's something that's assigned to you and you're like, I don't think I can do it by this time. But I guess like we know overall that we have to be done with stuff by like, because I think my program is done for the semester the first week of December, I think.
I looked, it's December 10th is our final papers are due. So
Okay.
we're right around the same spot.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I'll just write that down on top as like the overall December 10th is like kind of the biggest kind of deadline, but then I'll create some other deadlines before then in between that. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts?
I was also just hoping to get an interview with you. I think that I would really enjoy that, and it would help with the final project as well.
Yeah, yeah. Will you all be open to scheduling that? Do you want to schedule that today? Should we do that today, or should we? Do you have like your? Because I have my schedule here.
I'm down to do it today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to schedule it today, and I don't know if we're thinking individual or like in a group, but I guess it's up to you, Edgar.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do it individually. I feel like that maybe since you're each writing your own papers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. True. So how about, give me a second here. So next Saturday, would this work as a time for all of us to meet as a group, like at 9:30 again next Saturday? Do you know? Before we do the interview stuff.
Saturday the 17th?
Yes.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, it works for me too.
Okay. I'll just write that down.
Saturday at 9:30.
Okay. Okay, so I'm open on Saturday and Sunday, Sunday more like kind of in the daytime, morning time. So would someone want to schedule on either Saturday or Sunday for us to do an individual meet?
I'm open to next Sunday.
So the 18th?
Yeah, the 18th.
Okay. Could you do 10 a.m. your time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. 10 a.m.
I also have time on Monday the 19th too. So either Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So for Diana and Brendan.
I think I can do Saturday or Sunday works best. If you want to
me too.
Figure out what works best for you.
Okay. What if can we do 1 p.m. your time, Brendan, for Saturday?
Yes. Sorry, I thought it was muted. Yes, I'm adding it to my calendar.
Okay. And then Diana, would you be open to me at noon on Sunday, the 18th?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
And just so I know, in terms of the interview, do you have an idea of what the structure is going to look like? Are you coming up with your own questions? Are the questions that Professor Shorter is giving you?
We're coming up with our own questions.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, good. Well, yeah, we'll see each other then next Saturday. I'll add some times to the sheet that we have. Again, feel free to change it if you feel like it doesn't make sense, or feel free to also add your own timeline. But if you feel like it's better for me to add it, I'll add some right now. And then by the time we meet next week, I'll have an idea of what kind of workshop offering we're going to have. And yeah, I guess, yeah, we'll see where we're at by then. Okay.
I just wanted to ask, so you said like end of the month for the workshop. I just want to be able to add it like as a tentative timeline kind of thing.
Yeah. Let me look at my schedule. Yeah, I might be able to do something either the end of the month, or if not, maybe even, yeah, because I'm doing the modern which is Confluence. Do you mind if I get back to you with dates next week?
Oh
'cause
yeah, definitely. I was
it'll
just
either
saying,
be
like, in general, beginning or end or beginning October, November.
yeah, I think, yeah, in general, end of October, beginning of November. It might make most sense for me to do it because the last week of October is pretty busy for me, the last weekend. It may make more sense to do it the first weekend of November. So yeah, Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, but I'll try to get a little clearer just to kind of figure out what my responsibilities are for the last weekend of the month. But yeah, either one of those two. Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it from me.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be working with you three. I'm really glad that you all wanted to work with me. I was actually like nervous when I turned it in to Professor Short. I was like, is anyone gonna want to work with me? Especially because I was like kind of already telling people in my cohort at UC Berkeley, like I might be working with some students, and I'm like, am I gonna have to tell them like that didn't work out? But you never know with these kinds of things, right? I think that's yeah, I'm just really grateful that you all want to work with me, and I'm also really excited to see what you do. And I'm also just really honored with what you're bringing to this, because I think it's really amazing that you're all bringing so much. Yeah. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. You all have my email too, and we'll see each other next week at the same time. But I'm available if you want to just send me a message in between. We'll have a good rest
Thanks
of
so
your day.
much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.